I think all these things are things that some of them people might already know. I'll just do a quick run through anyways. I won't go things through like B hopping. Those like too simple, but just general things that I think everybody should know. This is gonna be super simple for the first one, which is the air strafe climb, because I play with a lot of people that are like Masters Plus, like some of them are my friends, and I'm just surprised like they don't know this. But if you're, I had to learn this because when I started playing it was season 4 with all the buildings, and like there's no movement abilities besides Pathfinder, and I wasn't a Pathfinder main. And what you had to do was just climb all the buildings to get like weird angles and such. And it took me a while to actually learn this because I was doing it wrong the whole time. But what I was doing was like, I'd be like, oh. I'd be jumping on the thing and like rotating around, pressing directional key, which you can do. But what I found was easier is, let's say, like you're on a ledge of a balcony, and this is like the wall. Might not be big enough. But what I do is I would just air strafe right into it and climb up. That'd be the fastest way. Alright, next up we have the wall run. Can't believe some people don't know this, but here we go. Super easy. Slide jump into a directional key, and then you go into a wall run. This can be useful if there's like a gap you need to close, and there's like no real other way to get over there. You don't have to slide, like you can do it just with normal jump. And we're gonna go into the most useful one that I've found out recently, which is the wall bounce 2.0. Now I made a Twitter video on this, but it's not like easiest to explain without the keyboard overlay. But what you essentially want to do is when you hit the wall, you want to hold A or D. You see what just happened? Like, I held A against the wall, just jumping after it, and I'm doing something really weird. Or D. It's almost like an in-between of like a wall climb, whatever. So, it's just about timing. The standing one is more difficult, but generally all you want to do is just jump slide like a regular wall bounce, and you either hold A or press D and hold it, aka the opposite direction. What I found out is that if you hold the direction that is closest to the wall, since this is on my left, I'm holding A, I won't go, like my velocity won't increase as much. So if I want to like just mount the wall instead of launching my way like the right, I'll just hold A instead. And it becomes like a super easy mount. Just get straight over it. However, if I want to like increase my velocity and just end up somewhere over here, I'll press D and I'll instantly do an air strafe. It'll work exactly the same for the other direction. I notice how I'm air strafing into a wall bounce. That's how I normally do it, simply because in case it's parallel to me, it's still easy. But you don't have to air strafe, like it still works. Just remember to let go of W. So obviously next we have the standing wall bounce, which is something that AD was really known for and kind of blew up on YouTube about. which is basically everything I just said, except you don't slide. Don't slide at all. Because of how the directional key thing works, you can just, like, as long as you get the timing right, it's like you can get it. It works with, I think I've been finding it's a bit easier when you're pressing the directional key that's against the wall instead of the one that's opposite. But then again, it's still just mostly timing. Something special is that you can do this while you're crouched. I don't know how useful that can be. But yeah, that's just something that's there. There's also the short wall bounce, meaning that you can wall bounce off of any of these things. Anything that's really shorter than like your character model. Normally, if you tried to just do regular wall bounce, you'd stick to it. However, if you're holding A or D, you'll just go over it like nothing. Next up, something really simple, just a redirect, but I think people are still confused about it. So let's say I want to jump this way, then turn to the right. What I would do is do a jump slide and press DSA. Now if I wanted to do the opposite, jump slide, press ASD. Also the super zip jump. Make sure, well, you guys by now should probably have jump bound to scroll wheel. Like right here. And basically, as long as you're around one of these things and you can see the E to ride, just press E and scroll wheel at the same time. And you should be able to do it with good consistency. Why this is important is for another reason, the double super zip jump, which I've seen only a few people do, but it can be very useful in specific buildings, especially ones in Fragment where it's like a zipline building and with like multiple stories. What you want to do is you want to do a super zip jump, but then do a 180 and grab onto the zip again. And what you'll essentially do is you'll skip, if you're in the building, you'll skip an entire floor. Instead of like jumping from floor to floor, you'll jump from like the first floor to the third floor. And it can look pretty crazy if somebody's like looking down the zip, they'll never expect you. That's what it looks like. And I think the easiest way is, it depends on your sense, but sometimes people prefer if they look up since they don't have to like rotate as much. But it works regardless. There's also the backward zip jump, which is basically using a redirect, what I said before, and essentially you're just doing a super zip jump and then doing the redirect input, basically DSA or ASD. I use DSA more just for preference, doesn't really matter. And you can hold crouch to do a slide right out of it. And this can be useful in case there's like a secondary level. You can basically do a super zip jump, land on the secondary level without going forward, going backwards. Most people won't expect it because they'll just expect you to go forwards and your character model looks kind of weird doing like a semicircle in the air. Alright, next up we have the aerial redirect. Something that is pretty good with shotguns or anything else that has like perfect accuracy in the air. But basically what we're doing is let's say there's an enemy here and we want to peek them. So what we do is we would jump in the air and do a redirect. In this case, I'm doing delay. If we're on the opposite side, we do SD. So it would look something like this. Be kind of weird, but like on their screen, it would literally look like just something peeking for like half a second. It'd be quite difficult for them to shoot you. There is a method where you introduce tap strafing to make it even faster, but I haven't really done that. I don't think it's necessary. Like this is good enough. Like most people will expect you just to like shoulder peek, but in this case, like it's a little bit faster. Just be sure to do the redirect as fast as possible. And you still have to like practice a little bit to center your crosshair, simply because when you're doing that air strafe motion, it moves your crosshair like a little bit further out. Next up we have the ledge slide. You've probably seen this in one of my videos, but very similar to a super glide, but it's basically a failed super glide in the sense that you're basically doing the same thing, except you're not like activating the super glide. The best way is to climb something and jump. I'll get over here. You want to climb something, then jump at the peak of it. And you'll get that initial boost of speed. You'll see the velocity increase. And as the velocity increases, you can do basically anything. You can air strafe, you can redirect, you can tap strafe. It's not as fast, but still useful. Like if you're fighting somebody around like a small box like this, like you can get like just a small advantage. And lastly, for the useful movement tech, we have tap strafing. Big disclaimer, I don't use scroll wheel to tap strafe, even though I would recommend most people to. But how I would do it, I would just spam W. Like it's not as efficient, but for me most of the time, like if I'm tap strafing, it's good enough. But the idea for like manual tap strafing is basically you slide jump and then you look in a directional, you press the directional key D or A and you just mash W. It's honestly that simple. Like if I'm getting chased down and I need to get behind cover, that's pretty much all I do. There was talk about how you can tap strafe and go behind this wall, but I found you can also do that with just a general redirect. Is far easier. I think redirects are possibly the most useful in this game. And I think someone said something earlier about tap strafe wall bounce. Not the most useful, but essentially what we're just combining the button mash with holding directional key when we hit the wall. Like that. Alright, that's mostly it for the update for the movement guide. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and to follow me on Twitter at BambiSweet69. Part 2, strafe aiming, will be coming soon. Until then, love y'all, and peace.